Now, you don't have to say anything under oath if you don't want to.
No, I'm happy to. Okay. These are rounds that never left Arizona. They were always in the possession of Thel Reed and Troy Teskey. They never went to Texas. They never came to New Mexico. That's what all of the evidence indicated. So I understood that Detective Hancock had communication with Mr. Teskey about trying to get those rounds, and Detective Hancock was unable to get those rounds from Mr. Teskey. I did not find that particularly concerning because those rounds had never left Arizona. The filming of Rust was in the state of New Mexico. And the rounds that were taken from PDQ went from Arizona to Texas to Albuquerque. So ammunition that is in the state of Arizona that has never left Arizona did not strike me that it had significant evidentiary value. Then, and I will say, I believe I actually saw a photo of it. At that point in time, I was able to look at the ammunition myself, and it was visibly dissimilar, the rounds from the set of Rust. We then cut to November of 2023. Mr. Bowles has put Mr. Teskey on a witness list for the Hannah Gutierrez case. We conducted a pretrial interview with Mr. Teskey on November 2nd of 2023. At that point in time, he brought up that he was still in possession of these live rounds that were Thel Reed's live rounds that had never left the state of Arizona. I then, when he started, I think he indicated during the pretrial interview that they were from the same batch that was sourced from Joe Swanson. And I then said, we should get those from you.
I think
I had a conversation with Detective Hancock after that pretrial interview about how we could get the rounds from Mr. Teskey. And we were trying to figure out if we could send a local law enforcement agency to pick them up. I was then decided that I needed to figure out if that was necessary since they had never left Arizona. And up to that point, it was my impression that they did not match the live rounds from the set of Rust. I then, as I recall, reached out to Mr. Bowles. He and I had a conversation about whether or not the rounds should be tested by the FBI. And I was still trying to figure out if I could get the rounds from Arizona to New Mexico. So I asked Mr. Bowles to please send me a photograph of the rounds from Troy Teskey so that I could see with my eyes whether they were even remotely similar. If they were similar, I could go through the steps of obtaining the ammunition, connecting probably with local law enforcement, having a local law enforcement agency go to Mr. Teskey's residence. And
hold on, let me stop right here. The words, I think, probably, like, what is going on here? Brianna, thank you so much for the $4.99. Says a prosecutor putting herself on the stand during her own prosecution is not a good look. She wanted the glory. This is what she got. Thank you so much for the $4.99. B. Tim says, way to dig yourself deeper into a hole, a rabbit hole that is. Oh my God. Let's keep watching it.
Collect them. I didn't want to do that if they didn't look anything like the rounds from the set of Rust, because all six rounds from the set of Rust are identical to each other. So when I had this conversation with Mr. Bowles, he provided me the photograph that I showed this morning. And this is it was my understanding that this was a photograph from Troy Teskey. So Troy and I don't communicate. He's a defense witness. I can't communicate with a defense witness. So Mr. Bowles, as I recall, texted me this photo, and this is a photo that Mr. Teskey took at my request so that I could determine whether this ammunition was related in any way to the set of Rust, because it never left the state of Arizona. So if it never left the state of Arizona, the only way that it is relevant to the Rust investigation is if it has any similarity to the live rounds that were found on the set of Rust, because we were at that point trying to figure out the source of the live rounds. When I received this photograph from Mr. Bowles, I could immediately tell that these are very dissimilar from the live rounds that were found on the set of Rust. They have brass primers. So this is what was presented to the prosecution as the rounds that were in Mr. Teskey's possession. They have brass primer.
So is she now like an expert at this? Why is she doing this? B. Tim, thank you so much for the $10. So am I getting this straight? She didn't turn over evidence or let the other side know because she deemed it unrelatable. That's what I'm picking up. And when found out, she went on the stand and dug herself a deeper hole. And how do you know from a photo? Why aren't you like, oh my. 2024 is fucking wild. B. Tim, thank you for the $10. Shout out to B. Tim. Thank you so much. Am I understanding? Listen, I don't have to be an expert of it. Like, if I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, you have got to be kidding me.
Primers and not silver primers. One of them, the one on the left, appears to be a Starline brass casing, but they have truncated cone projectiles. We had seen ammunition that looked exactly like this, not exactly, but very, very similar. And that ammunition was the ammunition that was collected from the sheriff's department and went to the FBI for testing and was determined not to be similar in any way to the live rounds on the set of Rust.
How does she know this?
So when I saw this photograph, I could see that it was not at all similar to the live rounds on the set of Rust.
I have to speed her up, guys.
And I decided not to take any steps to collect this ammunition because it was in Arizona, had never come to New Mexico, and didn't match the live rounds on the set of Rust.
Because she's an idiot.
So what ends up happening is Mr. Teskey is called to New Mexico by Mr. Bowles to testify at the Gutierrez trial. And you can hear on the video that the court heard Mr. Teskey say, the defense attorney, that's not me, asked him to bring samples of that ammunition.
The defense attorney, that's not me. No shit, Sherlock. I'm sorry. Like, are we really watching this? So instead of taking it to the lab for testing, she decided this all based on photos. So we're convicting this man based on photos? Based on the eyewitness testimony of this prosecutor who didn't turn this shit in when she would need it to? Oh my God. All right, let me keep watching. I have to speed her up, guys, because I got to go. But like, honestly, this is too much.
According to Mr. Teskey, he brought the samples of the ammunition, showed them to the defense attorney, and the defense attorney said, I don't want those. I'm not going to use those. And by the way, I'm not going to call you as a witness. So Mr. Teskey sat in court during the trial, and then at some point contacted the deputies downstairs and said, I have this ammunition. So he tried to give it to the defense attorney, who's the person who asked him to bring it. The defense attorney said no. And he then tried to get a hold of Detective Hancock, who was not available because she was with me. So then he ends up going to the sheriff's department and he leaves the ammunition at the sheriff's department. I was contacted, I don't think it was the same day, but I'm not 100% sure. It's possible that it was, by Detective Hancock, and she indicated that Troy Teskey had dropped off ammunition at the sheriff's department. Because I had already asked for a photograph of it, I believed that that ammunition was going to look like the photograph that Mr. Bowles had sent me. Corporal Hancock indicated that she was going to tag them into evidence and she was going to create what she called a doc report. And I said, great, do that. I was not aware at that point in time that a doc report would not have the same case number as Rust. I was not aware at that point in time that it would not be linked to the Rust case number. I understood that he had dropped off ammunition that I believed to not look similar to the ammunition from the set of Rust. And I had no idea that it wasn't going to have the same case number.
I don't know what to say.
When Mr. Teskey showed up to testify with the ammunition that Mr. Bowles told him to bring to the state of New Mexico, he was not called as a witness. And Mr. Bowles said, I'm not taking that ammunition from you. That's why. Because these are photographs from Hannah Gutierrez's cell phone extraction, and they show spot on match for the live rounds found on the set of Rust. This is clearly the reason that Mr. Bowles said, you and your ammunition better get out of here, because it would not have hurt the case, the state's case against Hannah Gutierrez. It would have been the best evidence I could have hoped for.
Oh, she thinks she's eating. Let me just stop. Oh my God. Brianna, thank you so much. The more info that rolls in, the less likely I think Hannah is to be released. The exculpatory evidence they hid implicates her further. I don't think she'll get out, but we'll see. Thank you so much for the $9.99, my love. Thank you. And then B Tim, thank you for the $5. Be ready for Alec to sue the state. That's what I'm thinking is gonna happen. Be ready for Alec Baldwin to sue the state for malicious prosecution. Thanks for losing more of our tax dollars, lady. This is what? Shout out to Pat and shout out to everybody. Shout out to Pika and everybody who was telling me to look at this. Oh my God. I got a couple minutes and then I got to get out. But like, oh my God. See, in this BTIM, if I was Alec Baldwin, I probably would be suing too. Come on now. Like, more money. More money.
These look exactly like the ammunition, the actual ammunition that we have in evidence. And they do look like the 3 rounds that are in that envelope. So when Mr. Teskey couldn't get Mr. Bowles to take them because they were the best evidence against his client, he took them over to the sheriff's department. And when he dropped them at the sheriff's department, I was told that there was going to be a report. There was a report. I assumed they looked like these. And Detective Hancock indicated to me that because he dropped them off and he didn't wait for her, she was then going to try to follow up with him, take a statement from him so that we could get some idea where they came from, what the relevance was, if there was any relevance at all. And he never returned her phone calls.
And
that's all of the information that I can give the court, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Here we go. Here we go. Defense is coming. Let's go.
Can I ask a few questions, John? When you took over this case, the investigator handling the case, Mr. Schilling, left the case, correct?
At my request, yes.
The paralegal that was handling this case with you left the case, Mr. Todd?
At my request, yes.
Well, the first prosecutor that was working with you on this case, you selected, correct?
I did.
And he resigned too?
I wouldn't say that he resigned, no.
Okay. He didn't stay on the case for the Alec Baldwin trial, correct?
No, and he indicated that that was because he represented a labor union that's a national labor union, and he was not expecting the trial to be set so quickly. He wasn't expecting it to be set in July. So when he realized that the trial was going to be set in July, he was going to be in collective bargaining agreements for his national labor union, and he wasn't going to be able to have enough time.
Erlinda Johnson, the next prosecutor selected, resigned from the case today?
She did.
Based in part on the conduct we're here discussing, correct?
I believe that Ms. Johnson Ms. Johnson didn't want my understanding is that she didn't agree with the decision to have a public hearing.
On July 1st in this matter, you served a certificate of compliance with 5501, correct?
I did.
And you've never turned over the report or any of the evidence that we're talking about here at this hearing, correct?
Let's take it one at a time. I did not turn over the report. I didn't have a copy of the report. The rounds that were left at the sheriff's department by Troy Teskey, I have absolutely no reason to believe that they are relevant to the incident that took place on the set of Rust. These are rounds that were in the possession of Del Reed and never left the state of Arizona.
You also did not allow the defense to view that evidence at any point during our request to review evidence in this case.
I had never seen it, and I didn't realize that it wasn't under the same case number because I'm not a law enforcement officer and I don't work at the sheriff's department. But
What?
you are right.
And you can see that they are Starline brass, silver 45, right?
I can. And this is the best evidence against Hannah Gutierrez.
Yeah, you said that a couple times. Any favorable evidence you understand as a prosecutor has to be turned over to the defense,
I
correct?
do.
Any evidence that could be used as a defense to potentially be favorable has to be turned over to the defense.
Absolutely.
So the third Hague report that never got turned over to the defense, you understand that that's Brady evidence?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you also failed to turn that over in this case as well, correct?
And let me give you a full answer to your question. When the second Hague report came in, and I provided all of this to the defense, I sent it to the person who is managing the discovery server and asked them to upload it. It wasn't until I realized during pretrial interviews that it wasn't there, that there was a problem with it. So I then attempted to figure out what the problem was, and it was indicated to me that it appeared that the former paralegal who was working for the special prosecutor had removed it. So we then immediately provided it. Then during the pretrial interview of Mr. Hague, it was brought to my attention that the defense did not have the August 31st report.
Where does the buck stop? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
It indicated that the gun functioned fine, perfectly fine, And that was provided immediately. I went back, I checked my email, I could see that I received it from Mr. Haig and failed to forward it on to be uploaded. And I provided it as soon as I was aware that you did not have it.
Oh my.
The fact that nobody at the Hannah Goodyear's retrial cross-examined Mr. Haig about the report didn't clue you into the fact that nobody had the report?
Actually, it didn't, and I'd like to address that. The reason that it didn't clue me in is because Hannah Gutierrez's defense was that the gun worked perfectly. The defense in Hannah Gutierrez was never interested in any evidence that there was an issue with the gun, because if there was an issue with the gun, it damaged her case. So what you could see, if you watched the trial or saw any of the transcripts, the defense actually brought in their own experts to say that the gun worked perfectly. So they had no interest in that information.
Answer the fucking
And actually, you
question.
elicited
Oh my
testimony
God.
from Mr. Haig at that trial that was inconsistent, at least partially inconsistent, as the court's aware, with his third report, correct?
Tell me what you're referring to, and I'll answer your question.
Well, there was a whole hearing about this where you saw this and you saw me go back and forth with Mr. Haig for 25 minutes.
I cannot.
I agree, but I need to know what you're talking about for me to answer your question.
Okay, if you can't answer the question, you can't answer the question. I'll move on.
I'm happy to, but
You say that the extent of the communications you have about the doc report, as you relay it to the court, is that all you said in response was, "Great, do that." That's your testimony?
yeah, I assumed that it was going to be tied to the same case number. So I said, great, do it, file a report.
No follow-up questions?
No, because I had a picture of the ammunition that didn't match the ammunition from the set of rust.
No concerns in your mind when you got the case file and you turned it over to us that it wasn't included?
Absolutely not. There's a terabyte of discovery. I didn't know whether this 2-page police report had been provided. And in addition to that, I had no reason to believe, and still have no reason to believe, that those rounds have anything to do with these cases.
As I asked you about Mr. Haig yesterday when Ms. Popple testified, you would agree with me that her testimony under oath was false.
What part of her testimony was false? And I'll answer.
That she said that these rounds don't look anything like the rounds on the set when you elicited that testimony.
I agree with you. And I didn't realize that there were rounds that looked like that.
It's okay. In any event, when the court, and you never tested those rounds either, correct?
Any of the rounds that came from Mr. Teskey? No, because they came in just a few months ago.
And the court asked you actually one question that I want to address, which is the court said to you, well, what's interesting to me, to be quite honest, is that yesterday you didn't even want to do a written reply. You wanted to just give an oral response. And what you said to the court was, I never saw these, I've never seen these, and I never saw the report. I have absolutely never seen these until this morning. Do you remember saying that to the court?
With regard to the 3 Starline brass, with regard to the 3 cartridges that appear to be similar to rust, yes.
Well,
I never saw them until today.
Well, but you said also, I never saw the report, right?
I never did.
Right, but don't you think, given your duty of candor to this court, that that's awfully misleading to not tell the court at that point that you knew about this when it occurred long ago?
Oh my God. Okay, so she never saw the report. It's often misleading. She lied to the fucking court. I'm sorry, y'all. Now I'm cussing because this is not a game, okay? Like this is ridiculous. And you know what? Like honestly, what else don't we know? What else don't we know? Yeah, you can't see things you don't look at. You're not an ammunition expert. I can, thank you, Kim. I have Kim's blessing. I'm sorry, y'all. I have lost it. Let me keep playing this because I got a couple minutes and then I gotta go. But like, honestly, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And it's Friday.
You knew about what?
You knew that Mr. Teskey had turned in this evidence, that you knew that the report would have existed because you just told this court that the doc report was okayed by you.
Sure.
Don't you think it was misleading to this court to not just say at that point, just so you know, I know about this. I knew about this then. I was involved.
I did not intend to mislead the court. My understanding of what was dropped off at the sheriff's department is on this computer screen, and it looks absolutely nothing like the live rounds from the set of rust.
The truth of this matter is, you don't like Mr. Baldwin very much, do you?
You know, that is absolutely untrue. I actually really appreciate Mr. Baldwin's movies. I really appreciated the acting that he did on Saturday Night Live, and I really appreciate his politics.
You really like that Trump impersonation? I'm fucking dead. I really appreciated his movies. I watch all 25 of them. I am done. No, Pat, why you make me watch this now? Brianna, thank you so much for the $4.99. She said, if she's elected, she needs to be recalled, prosecuted, and disbarred. Her legal career needs to be over. I just cannot. She said, I like all of his movies. Keep going. No, don't make me keep going. All right, let me keep watching.
You told one of the witnesses who disagreed with you during an interview that you thought Mr. Baldwin was a cocksucker.
I do not recall saying that. I know that that was something that Mr. Baldwin would say on the set of rust. I don't recall saying that.
Do you deny that under oath?
Without having more information, I can tell you that I do not recall ever saying that. And if I did say it, I invite you to point it out to me.
You called him an arrogant prick to another witness.
To who? To what witness?
I'm asking you, did you call him an arrogant prick during the witness interview?
I don't believe I did. I don't recall.
You deny that.
Without knowing what you're talking about, all I can tell you is that I can't respond if I don't know what you're talking about.
I think he's an arrogant prick. Okay, let's keep watching.
And you said also to witnesses that you would teach him a lesson.
I never said to witnesses that I would teach him a lesson. Absolutely not. In fact, Mr. Spyro, I want to give a full response to your question. I made every effort in this case to resolve this case with your client in a very favorable way for him.
All right, I'm gonna move to strike this. It's not responsive.
It is
Well, I don't
responsive.
want to talk about plea negotiations.
Yeah, and it's not responsive. So I have no further
All right, do you have any follow-up testimony? All
I,
right,
I want to say I have no recollection of calling him any of those names. I have invited the defendant to tell me what he's talking about, and he has declined. I want the court to take notice of that.
Listen, facts ain't defamation. Okay, fact, he's an arrogant prick. Period. Night Charm's like, I cannot.
thank you. You may step down. All right, any other witnesses?
No, you're on.
Oh,
All
she's
right,
mad.
argument is up, 15